The Black Hollow Forest. It was October 2019 when 5 college friends from Colorado decided to spend a weekend camping deep inside a place known as Black Hollow Forest. They had always enjoyed exploring abandoned places and mysterious locations, and after reading strange stories online about the forest, they became even more curious. According to local legends, hikers had disappeared there for decades without leaving a single trace. Some people claimed to hear strange whistles after sunset, while others believed the forest itself was alive. The friends laughed at the stories, packed their cameras, camping gear, food, and a drone into their black SUV, and started the long drive toward the forest. Several hours later, they arrived at the entrance of Black Hollow Forest. The road suddenly became silent. There were no birds singing and no sounds of wildlife. An old ranger station stood beside the entrance, where an elderly forest ranger slowly walked toward them carrying a flashlight. Looking directly into their eyes, he quietly warned them, "If you hear a whistle after dark, don't answer it. And whatever happens, never separate from each other." The friends smiled politely, thanked him, and continued into the forest, believing he was only trying to scare tourists. As they walked deeper into the forest, the trees became taller, the air became colder, and thick fog covered the ground. Daniel launched his drone to capture beautiful aerial footage. Everything looked normal until the camera suddenly recorded a tall black figure standing motionless between 2 trees. Before anyone could zoom in, the screen turned black, and the drone completely lost signal. As night arrived, they built a campsite and lit a campfire. They cooked dinner, laughed together, and joked about the old ranger's warning. Around 10:30 that night, Daniel's camera suddenly switched on by itself. When they replayed the recording, they noticed a dark figure standing behind their campsite. Everyone quickly turned around, but nobody was there. They convinced themselves it was only a camera glitch, although deep inside each of them felt they were being watched. Just after midnight, a long whistle echoed through the forest. It sounded distant at first, but moments later it became much closer. Everyone froze. They remembered the ranger's warning, but curiosity quickly turned into fear. Chris grabbed his flashlight and slowly walked toward the sound, despite everyone shouting for him to stop. Within seconds, he disappeared into the thick fog. Almost 15 minutes later, Chris returned. His face looked pale, his clothes were covered in mud, and he refused to make eye contact with anyone. When Daniel asked where he had gone, Chris remained completely silent. He simply sat beside the fire, staring into the flames without blinking. None of the friends slept that night because something about Chris no longer felt human. The next morning, Chris acted as though nothing had happened. However, Daniel decided to review the drone footage from the previous evening. Frame by frame, he noticed that Chris had never been alone. A tall shadow with glowing white eyes had been following him the entire time. Before Daniel could show the footage to the others, the video mysteriously deleted itself. That night, strange things began happening around the campsite. Their phones lost all signal. Every compass pointed in a different direction. Even their GPS stopped working completely. Heavy footsteps circled around their tents throughout the night, but every time someone looked outside, nothing could be seen. At sunrise, panic spread through the camp. Jake had disappeared. His sleeping bag was empty, but his backpack, flashlight, and boots were still beside the fire. There were no footprints, no blood, and no signs of a struggle. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Terrified, the remaining friends packed everything and tried to leave the forest. They walked for hours following the map, but somehow they ended up back at the exact same campsite. Chris quietly whispered, "The forest doesn't want us to leave." As darkness returned, they discovered strange symbols carved into the surrounding trees. Some looked centuries old, while others appeared freshly carved. When Daniel touched one of the symbols, it felt strangely warm. A freezing wind swept through the forest. Their flashlights began flickering, and somewhere in the distance they heard children laughing. Yet they knew there were no children anywhere nearby. Suddenly, Ryan pointed toward the trees, standing perfectly still inside. The fog was the same tall black figure Daniel had seen in the drone footage. Its glowing white eyes never blinked. It slowly raised one long arm and pointed deeper into the forest before disappearing. Without making a single sound, At that exact moment, every flashlight went out, leaving the group trapped in complete darkness. Daniel shouted for everyone to run. The remaining friends sprinted through the forest as strange whistles echoed from every direction. No matter which path they chose, they always returned to the same place. Then Chris suddenly stopped, stared into the darkness and quietly whispered, "It's calling my name." Before anyone could stop him, he walked into the fog and disappeared forever. Only Daniel and Ryan continued running until sunrise. At last, they saw a highway ahead. Daniel reached the road and collapsed in exhaustion. When he turned around to call Ryan, he was gone. There were no screams, no footsteps, and no signs that Ryan had ever been there. Daniel realized he was completely alone. Police searched Black Hollow Forest for weeks. They found the abandoned campsite, the black SUV, the cameras, and all of the camping equipment. But the other 4 friends were never found. Daniel refused to speak about what happened for many years. Even today, local residents claim that on quiet nights, a lonely whistle can still be heard echoing through Black Hollow Forest. They say anyone who answers that whistle is never seen again.